Hey everyone, this is AT&T Uverse Sports, where we bring you the exciting world of sports happening right here on AT&T Uverse. I'm Rossi Morielli, and today we're talking streaks. Like Cal Ripken and his famous 2,632 straight Major League Baseball games. Streaks take consistency, longevity, and a whole lot of toughness, which is why they're one of the most celebrated statistics in sports. Now, why professionals get all the recognition, there are some athletes out there that push themselves day in and day out, and they don't do it for any money or any glory. And so today, we're gonna meet three athletes who do exactly that. A cyclist, a surfer, and a runner who have shown they can put themselves out there every single day just to pursue their dreams. So first up, let's meet Jim Langley, who despite having a full-time job and 2 kids, has managed to bike at least 1 hour a day for the last 17 years.
I like the feeling. I mean, it's an incredible feeling. You drop off a little lip and you'll sail down this beautiful S-turn through the redwoods and the lights coming through. You could swear you're a hawk just sailing through the valley. You don't even know the wheels are on the ground sometime. It's the greatest high in the world. It's so much fun. I've been a cyclist my whole life, and when I was around 40 years old, around 1990, I started thinking, well, what could I do that would be a little special? I decided, you know, I bet I could ride my bike every day.
I think it's something like 17 years straight without missing a day.
It's a pretty amazing feat that he's just able to get on the bike every single day, rain or shine, and put that kind of commitment in.
Think of all the things that have happened to you in the last 17 years, and Jim's no different than the rest of us. He's been injured, he's been sick, he's had commitments, and somehow or another he's got on that bike for an hour a day for 17 years. I'm not sure how anybody could ever match that, and he's still trying to stretch that.
What he's doing is basically it's something that makes him feel good about life.
My whole life has been in the bicycle industry. I've worked in 6 shops all the way across the United States. I worked for Bicycling Magazine. I've written 3 bicycling books. One was the 2nd best-selling book after Lance Armstrong's book. To me, it's just who I am.
Jim is a legend in our sport. He's what we would call a bicycle guru, somebody who's been around for a long time.
That's a nice bike. The shifting is very intuitive. It's built into the handlebars, the brake and shift levers, so that you can shift and brake without having to move your hands. This has got a carbon frame, carbon fork. The bars and stem are aluminum. You got to be on carbon. It really makes a huge difference, I think.
What was the hardest day?
The hardest day was I traveled to England. It was raining and I was jet lagged, and I only had about 2 hours to get my ride in, and I didn't have a bike. And I'm sitting there and I'm nodding off and I'm going, I should just go to sleep. I don't need to ride. And I'm like, no, I can't go to sleep. So I was like, okay, I gotta find somebody. So I started asking people, you got a bike I can borrow? You got a bike I can ride?
He will get up at 5:30 in the morning to get the bike ride in. If we're leaving, for example, at 8 o'clock for something, or he's always thinking, I have to get the bike ride in.
The streak is a tough thing to keep going. I mean, every day you get up in the morning and there's the highest priority of the day is to get your ride in.
We've landed in Hawaii, had a delayed flight, it's late.
We got there at 10:30 at night.
And he will go to the local CVS or whatever the drugstore is.
It was a basket case when I got there. I didn't have any lights.
Get a flashlight, hook it to his bike so he could get out and get a ride in.
So I duct taped him on the bike. It's pouring rain, and here I am riding back and forth because I didn't know where I was going. I hadn't been there before. And I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to get my hour in, and didn't make her very happy. That's pushes the family members to the limit when you get all compulsive, obsessive compulsive like that.
I just said, okay, you got to ride in. This is good. This is my vacation too.
She knows I'm a little off the deep end, kind of a commitment freak. I get into something, I really get into it.
He is competitive, and he's very, very devoted, and he doesn't just do anything halfway. He really goes for it.
I have a second sport, which is table tennis, so I'm a very serious table tennis player. I was playing ping pong before I was riding bikes. I've never stopped playing, and I still play about 5 hours a week table tennis. You got to practice if you want to play table tennis. That's an expensive robot. It's not a toy, it's about a $3,000 computerized table tennis robot.
Did your wife get mad at you when you bought a $3,000 table tennis robot?
It's best not to talk about that. You can't keep riding a bike unless you keep it rideable. So this is the shop where I fix a lot of my neighbors' bikes and friends' bikes and service all my bikes. I was a mechanic for almost 20 years professionally, so I set up a nice home shop. Over the years, I've saved bikes that I've had. When I first worked in bicycle shops, the bike I assembled the most was a Schwinn Varsity. That's my daughter's mountain bike. This is a Specialized Globe, which is a very utilitarian city bike. This is my Brompton folding bike. I have what's called a pocket rocket. It's a very high-performance bike that fits in a suitcase and flies for free. And this is one of the things that's allowed me to ride every single day and not miss a day, because I have toys like this. I like the old bikes just as much as the new bikes. Of course, my favorite is the high-wheel bike. This is an 1886 Victor high wheel, sometimes called a penny farthing, or the official name would be called an ordinary. And I actually ride this bike. I've even raced this bike. I've ridden 100 miles in a day on this bike 3 times, and actually own the mile record on the Stanford track on this bike. 100 miles, just about killed me. I have a passion for cycling. I've been in my whole life, and lately I've been really focused on racing road bikes.
We sponsor over 100 cyclists in Santa Cruz, and we have a core cycling team which has 30 members on it, which Jim is part of.
Jim's one of the older senior members out here, and he runs circles around the younger guys, and it keeps them trying harder and improving. He's brought the level of the entire group up. You know, it's amazing what he's done.
What is it about your personality, you think, that brought you to do this?
In a nutshell, I think I don't like to lose.
When do you think the streak is going to end?
Never even thought about it before. Will it ever end? I hope not.
First, it was 10 years. But 10 years came and went so fast, I thought, well, that was too easy. So then I thought, okay, 15. Well, same thing, 15 went by. So now I'm thinking 20, which would put me at roughly 60 years old. But then I think, well, if I stopped at 60 and I could have made it to when I was 70, I'd be really disappointed. Pretend you're 80 and look back on your life and ask yourself, am I going to be disappointed that I stopped when I did when I was 60? And if the answer to that question is yes, then push on, don't stop.
Welcome back to AT&T Uverse Sports. I'm Rossi Morielli, and today we're talking phenomenal streaks in sports. And this next one is truly unbelievable.
Mark Covert from Lancaster, California, has the longest running streak in the country. He started on July 23rd, 1968.
10 or 11 minutes, let's get some strides in.
His running streak will hit 43 years in July of 2011. He's averaged 9 miles a day during his running streak. So not only is he doing the minimum miles of 1 mile, he has surpassed it by 9 times that amount.
Years back, when I first started,
I noticed I was getting close to 100 days, and I thought, geez, I wonder if I can get to a year. I wonder if I can get a year without missing a day. A year turned to 2, turned to 3, turned to 5, and at 5 years, it was a monster. And now it's 43 years, and I don't know exactly what you'd call it at this point.
I think he's run over 160,000 lifetime miles. He's run around the world at least 6 times.
This is my workout log. It has all my workouts in since a sophomore in high school. The streak starts in here, 15-mile run back home in the hills that day. The first 7 days of the streak was a 200-mile week. I was running 15 miles in the morning and 15 miles in the afternoon.
My mom thinks the streak is, you know, just a regular part of our lives. It's always been something that's he's done, that's never really interfered with the family at all. But she sees it as something very important. The streak has been there longer than they've been married. The streak's been there longer than any of us kids have been alive.
It was something that became a part of me. I never was the most talented guy when I was racing. There were always a lot more talented people than I was, but I always thought that if I could train harder and psychologically be tougher, then maybe I couldn't beat the guys who were really the stars, but I could get in there and I could race with them once in a while.
I want everybody to run hard. This is a test. The object is push hard, okay? We'll do this again about 9 weeks from now to see where we are. Ready, go!
One thing that I will always remember that he told me, he told the whole team, he said, if there is a snowstorm, there's still practice. If there is a lightning storm, there's still practice. If there is an earthquake and it split the earth in half, you better make sure you're on my side, because there's practice.
My streak is something, you know, I don't talk to the kids a whole lot about the streak. They know about it through friends and things like that, and I hope that it teaches them about discipline, sticking with things, not giving up on things right away. And I hope they pick up that much from it.
Mentally, I've always struggled confidence-wise. So when I go into a race, I don't think I can compete with the girls I'm competing with, but coaches really helped me. He believed in me for one, and compared to like the other coaches I've had before, they've all given up on me. He was always there, and he's an inspiration to a lot of runners.
I'll tell you, he's a fighter. He's a fighter.
His podiatrist has told my dad, you know, that he's probably torn his Achilles a bunch of times, that he's had, I think he had something like 7 or 8 stress fractures during his time, and he just ran through them.
When did you start having problems with your feet? Was it?
I don't know, a day or two after I was born.
Toughest man alive, I think. Toughest man alive.
This last year has been difficult. I've had some back problems, quite a bit of problems with my feet. This is not a normal foot. There you go. It is beyond flat, as you can see, and it's completely collapsed. And that's why I can't really pull it in anymore. It's kind of collapsed and pushed out to the outside now.
People look at what he's done and they think how great it is, but they don't realize all the injuries he's had. Knee surgery, and he'll still go out and run that day, run the next day. A couple weeks ago, he had a bad back, and I would watch him walk down the bleacher steps, and I would think he's not even going to get down those steps, and yet he'll get up in the morning, and he'll go out and run.
A few weeks ago, he hurt his back, and he texted me, I don't know if I can run.
About a month ago, I hurt my back. It took me about 25 minutes to get my stuff on just to get ready to go out and run.
I've never known my dad to not get up and run. And so because of that, you root that on as well. And so I can't imagine him not doing it. And so when the thought of him not doing it, it scares the heck out of me.
I knew he was going to run, but he was beside himself that he was in so much pain.
I went out and sucked up a couple miles at a blazing 14 minutes a mile.
He got up and he ran, and then he went to the doctor.
When someone has that type of intensity, it's just amazing. Mark's very modest. He doesn't talk about what's going on in his life. He just goes out and does what he does.
He went to Burbank High in the 60s, and he was okay, but he wasn't great. Then he went to LA Valley College, trained with the 3rd guy to break 4 minutes in the mile. Went from being okay to being a state champion. Then he went to Cal State Fullerton, was a national champion. His first year there, his second year, he was on the national championship team that won.
I was the first guy to wear a pair of Nike waffle-soled shoes. They handmade a pair for me. They never had any kind of sole like this before. Obviously, this concept revolutionized athletic shoes. These are the very first pair ever to cross the finish line in a race when I wore them at the 72 Olympic trials up in Eugene in the marathon.
To me, the biggest accomplishment is the amount of respect that's given to him. Growing up in the Antelope Valley for such a long time, you have the last name that gives you the respect with those awards. Oh my gosh, your dad, he's the guy that wore the Nike shoes, he's the guy that has the streak. Oh my gosh, he was in the Olympic trials. I mean, people get excited once they hear that your last name is Covert because of the legacy in which he has throughout this community here and throughout the entire world.
By no means was I ever a star, you know, but I had my moments that I can look back on and be proud of. Those were fun times.
He'll do it till he drops. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he's not going to stop doing the runs. He wants to do it. It's part of him.
When I tell them that I haven't missed a day in 21 years, they're kind of amazed. But when I bring up Mark Covert, who has not missed a day since 1968, they are dumbfounded. And then when I mention that he's averaged 9 miles a day during that same period, it seems unbelievable.
I think my dad does it because of how much he enjoys doing it. I think that he continues to run because it's something that he looks forward to every day. And the streak will go on until somebody tells him that he can't do it. Some doctor will tell him he can't do it, but it's going to keep going for a while.
I figure he'll just do it until physically he can no longer do it. I think mentally he's always going to want to. Who wouldn't?
The streak will go on for as long as the streak goes on. You know, when it's over, I suppose, after I heal up from whatever makes it stop, I'll start another one.
There's a saying in the running world where there's tough and then there's covert tough. And that's, a lot of people around this country go by covert tough.
The one thing that I would say is that how much his streak has motivated other people, it really has inspired people. It's a lot of miles, man. A lot of miles. Yeah, a lot.
Welcome back to AT&T Uverse Sports. I'm Rossi Morielli, and today we're talking about amazing sports streaks. Our next athlete is Dale Webster, who's been surfing every single day since 1975.
I remember this one time going out surfing, and it was just stormy as can be, and it took me forever to catch a wave. Finally, I caught one, I rode it in, and I said, I got to go out there and catch 2 more. I have to ride at least 3 waves a day to call it a session. So I paddle back out, another wave comes, I ride it in. I said, 1 more. Paddle back out, get another one, come in, and these people saw it, and they say, you must be that surfer that surfs every day, because no one would have paddled back out for another one. Some days, paddling out is like trying to crawl up the down escalator, and just all these steps just coming at you, and you're trying to make headway, and all these waves you have to transcend to get out there. Just all these years of doing it, and just all these days that I've gone through, and it's just been like so personal to where it's like on this honor system that I have, that I'm gonna get my 3 waves even if no one can see me, if it's so foggy, if it's so windy, there's no one around, whatever. I still have that honor system of doing what I've done every day for over 35 years, over 13,000 days in a row.
I had this big dream last year that I was gonna go down to Southern California. I was going to take all of my wetsuits down. I was going to go surfing in every one of my suits, going to get one last wave out of every suit. 40 waves, 40 suits. I started loading up my car. I got about 20 wetsuits in there, and I realized that I couldn't fit them all. I had to stop. It would have been futile. Here's the wetsuit that I started surfing consecutively in. I had to sew it back together. You can see my stitching technique of sewing it up, putting it all back together once it came apart, gluing it together. All the sleeves all fell off. Believe it or not, the #1 hardcore surfer. I wanted to be world renowned so bad that I could transcend holes like this where the rubber just completely wears off of the wetsuit. This wetsuit should be in a museum. Looking at these wetsuits, I saved these wetsuits because I didn't think people would believe me that I surfed every day. I thought there might be someone else in the world that was surfing every day. And in case of a tie, these wetsuits would settle the tie. Who was the most hardcore surfer in recorded history? Looking at these wetsuits, I don't think there's any doubt. I like this part. This is a man who has been ridiculed for his efforts because of some of the conditions he finds himself in that he admits no one in their right mind would ever paddle out and surf. It's a shame because all he really wanted to do was to be recognized as a peer among the surfing greats, not because he was the best or ridden the biggest or the deepest, but because he rode the most. I don't know, it's just, I really wanted to be on the cover of Surfer magazine. I know it'll never happen, but I really, really wanted to be on the cover.
I wake up every morning, and it's kind of like the same little routine where I turn on the computer, start boiling some water to make some coffee, finding out, looking at the data, seeing where the waves are going to be, deciding which board to take, and when the tides are going to be the best, and then putting myself there for the waves for that day. I always like to document the surf, keep a little record of where I go out, what it looked like, how many people were out.
In 1960, President Kennedy, the Russians were all acting up, and they were acting like Americans are weak, they're lazy, they can't do anything. The Russians are stronger, and so in order to counteract that, Kennedy had the Marines put on 50-pound backpacks and walk 50 miles. And then all these people said, I can do that, and everyone was like trying to beat the Russians. There was a roller skate rink in town. My friend and I went down there, found a roller skate that was broken, a pair of them, cut them in half, made skateboards, and we were going to skateboard 50 miles to prove to the Russians that Americans were stronger than the Russians and we could skateboard 50 miles. I made it almost 5 blocks before the skateboard fell apart, but it was the principle. Those were the days. You never know what you're gonna get or what to expect sometimes. You have to come to the beach and find out the hard way what it's gonna be like. Surfers think that waves are animate, that they're living. And it's just so amazing of how no two waves are alike, but some waves seem like they want to be ridden. And when you get one of those and you ride it, it's like you'll never forget it because it is just the sensation of riding something that is alive and powerful and unknown. And when you're riding a piece of nature and being conveyed, it's like nothing else. It's like you're standing on top of the world and you're just going through the wind. And it's just priceless. It's just such a unique thing to do.
What will it take for this streak to end? What would have to happen? I've often thought about that, especially more now that I'm getting older, what it would take. The storms, roads washed out, cars breaking down, tidal waves. What would it take to cause a day to be my last day?